Today, we're going to be talking about the sequence viewer inside of all of 0.2 and all the different things you can do with it and how useful it actually is. So let's get into it. You can't see this until you've actually made your entire project. You have your footage and you've dragged it into the timeline area to create your first sequence. You can actually rename your sequence and stuff like that, which will change your sequence viewer, whatever it says right here to change it. So I'm going to do that real quick actually. So we're just going to call this birdhouse. Actually, we're going to call it bird fun. Bird fun. If you have a clip selected inside of the timeline, you can actually see all of the different transform options right here, actually, to be able to transform it, but we actually don't need to do that. So we're just going to have it like this real quick. And with that, the sequence viewer is right up here. I'm going to highlight it with this blue, which means you've actually selected it. So we're inside of here right now, and we're going to talk about this bottom portion first. So you have your play options, do that to play, stop. You can go back a frame, forward a frame, do that. You can even go from the absolute end of the entire sequence or the beginning of the entire sequence. Just jump in between right there. You can drag this if you want to change it, or you can double click it and be able to change the exact number. You can even drag up here if you want to be able to do it. It's connected directly into the actual timeline. You can zoom in and out by just clicking and dragging on these left or right. You can move it like that, or you can even just do the plus or minus. So I'm zooming out right now, zooming back in. You can just do that if you wanted to. And with that, that's the basics of the lower portion. You have this, which actually shows you the final time of the entire sequence. And you can even change this, copy, paste, do whatever you need with it. With the rest of the sequence, it's basically just whatever the actual timeline has. So if you had multiple clips, it would show it in the top to bottom, whatever, just like a normal layer editor. But you have a few different options you actually have with the sequence viewer. If you select it and then do a right click, you can change the display. So if you have an sRGB display, BT.1886 display, Apple Display P3, you can select it right there. You can also change the view if you need to see it in like a linear log, Filmic Log Pro. These are based off of the color space of the actual image that you're wanting to see it in. You can also do different looks, which is actually really cool. So in the looks, you have a normal, grayscale, false color, very high contrast, medium contrast, base contrast, medium, low contrast, and very low contrast. So you can select in between those. Mainly, you're probably going to use the grayscale, or I could imagine you could use false color. You could use it when you're color grading and different things in all of 0.2, which at this point, they don't have full ability to do that, but it's coming very quickly. That is one of the actual key features of why they went from a layer-based editor actually to node-based. So with that, we also have different things like we have a zoom, so you can zoom into the timeline out, for instance. So that was a 10%, 100%, you're like this. You can actually move around kind of just like your node editor with the middle mouse click. You have your basic controls right here. You can go up, down, little segments, do whatever you need there. You also can use the hand tool by either pressing H and clicking and dragging, or just going there and enabling it. But I'm going to use this real quick, and we're going to go into the zoom and fix it real quick to fit. And then we also have full screen options. So this is actually really, really, really useful. So if you have multiple monitors or whatever, and you want a specific monitor to be able to show the final sequence so you can just play it back, be able to see it completely, you can select it right here by going into the full screen and just selecting one. Another thing is you have your scopes. You have a waveform or a histogram one. If you click it, it should pop up a window like this. I'm going to click and drag it into there real quick. I like having it right in there. But you can even do the drop down to go in between the histogram or the waveform. I don't know enough about these to actually really help you guys with it. You also have under the scopes, you have caching. I have an entire tutorial on this if you guys want to see it. Should be a little eye in the corner that pops up. You have an auto cache, pause cache. There's different ways you can actually do it, but these like create proxy files, different things like that to speed it up. You also have safe margins. If you just go down one, you have safe margins, where you can turn them on, off. If you just turn it on, it's automatically going to be like this, which I think it's because mine is a 16:9 that isn't a 16:9. But you can just see there's these like two boxes, and these actually can help you when placing text or graphics or different things like that. So you're actually inside of a safe margin area for if someone was viewing it on a different device or something else like that. I'm also going to show you that you actually have a custom aspect ratio right here, which will pop up this little box that it says enter custom ratio. It has some examples. I'm going to do this one, just a 1:1 for an example. We're going to do that real quick. And as you can see now, it's just a 1:1 with the top, and it's the exact same right there as it is there. And with that, it's actually very, very useful, especially if you're doing something for like Instagram, because that's why I chose the 1:1 is because Instagram. But you can do a 16:9, 9:6, 4:3, different aspect ratios like that. I'm going to disable it real quick. But there's also another option that's kind of nifty if you just want to be able to see the actual waveforms of the audio. You can actually do right click and press show audio waveform, and it will only show you the waveform of it. It's hard to see it in this clip because I was very, very quiet in it because I was just getting some B-roll. But as you can see little jumps and stuff like that in there, where you can see a little noise and things like that. And if I play it, you should be able to hear a little bit of kind of like birds and just background wind noise, maybe me stepping a tiny bit. So that's really nifty, and you can just disable it by right clicking and pressing disable. So these are actually the basic options you have with the sequence viewer. If you guys want some more tutorials, I have a whole playlist over here of different Olive 0.2 tutorials, and even a video over here that YouTube recommends for you. And with that said, remember guys, keep on editing.